They told me Earth would be boring. A primitive sphere clinging to an underdeveloped star, populated by bipeds who burn liquefied fossils for movement and argue passionately about which brand of sugar water tastes superior. My assignment was not a battle or a conquest, but an evaluation, a survey to determine whether the species warranted classification above trivial. I considered it a punishment more than an honor. After all, my record in the fleets was exemplary. Why send a decorated officer to catalog a race of creatures who spend hours watching strangers renovate kitchens? Yet protocol is protocol, and I obeyed. My ship descended through the cloudy atmosphere with precision, cloaking itself from their crude satellites. The forest stretched beneath me like a wrinkled green skin. According to the data we had collected, this was where humans liked to camp. They voluntarily abandoned their cities to sit beside fires, cook meat on sticks, and sleep inside fabric huts. Our analysts thought this was ritualistic masochism. I thought it was idiocy. We scanned the terrain and found him. A lone male, mid-30s by human measure, seated beside a riverbank. His fire had burned low, his tent sagged like an exhausted lung, and he was gazing across the water as if waiting for the world to answer a question it never would. He was ideal for observation. Isolated, unremarkable, forgettable. My crew joked that he resembled the images humans themselves mocked, bearded, flannel-clad, and suspiciously fond of staring at trees. I authorized the extraction with a flick of my claw. The paralysis beam struck his body, dropping him without sound. We lifted him aboard effortlessly, sliding his frame onto the analysis table. I admit I expected thrashing, screaming, perhaps the legendary human profanity. Instead, there was silence. His eyes were closed, his breathing calm, almost meditative. It irritated me. A subject should squirm, not rest as though floating in a warm bath. Primitive, I declared. My crew nodded. The soldier muttered that the humans smelled of smoke and salted meat, which was true. The scientist prepared instruments for cranial measurement. Our task was straightforward. Catalog neural capacity, test reflexes, and confirm the obvious, limited cognition. Nothing about him suggested danger. He was docile, his muscles unremarkable, his heart rate steady. Still, I could not resist commentary. Observe how their garments are stitched, I told the team. They still use fiber and thread. Their weapons expel metal pellets using fire. And their entertainment? They watch simulated mating competitions where individuals are eliminated weekly. They call it reality television. It is neither reality nor intelligent. The laughter echoed across the chamber. I enjoyed it. Ridicule maintained morale. But even as we mocked, the human's lips twitched. A faint smile, gone almost before it formed. My scientist dismissed it as muscular reflex. I was less certain, though I hid my hesitation behind arrogance. We initiated scans. His skull lit with patterns, pulses dancing across monitors. Expected results: moderate synaptic activity, scattered memory clusters, nothing extraordinary. But one pattern surged unusually high, a lattice of connections unfamiliar to our database. The scientist frowned, muttering about anomalies. I told him to ignore it. Every primitive species had quirks. It changed nothing. I leaned close, observing the face. Humans had expressive visages, and this one carried the wear of years in solitude. Yet beneath it lay calm, unnerving calm. Not the resignation of prey, but the patience of something watching hunters grow overconfident. I dismissed the thought immediately. My mind had been sharpened by campaigns. Paranoia was natural when surrounded by incompetence. The soldier joked about keeping him as a mascot. We could teach you to fetch tools, he said. Another suggested releasing him back with fabricated memories, like we had done with others. I allowed the banter. This mission required no discipline, only patience until the report was complete. And yet, when I looked again, his eyes were open. No alarm had triggered, no restraints had shifted, but there he was, staring directly at me. Not panicked, not confused, simply awake, with a gaze sharper than any I had endured from rival commanders. My soldier cursed and raised his weapon instinctively. The scientist fumbled for sedatives. I raised a hand, halting them. Curiosity triumphed. Strange, the human said, voice quiet but steady. Your ship hums at about 60 hertz. Reminds me of a cheap transformer. His accent was harsh, consonants striking like small stones, but his composure was absolute. He should not have been conscious. He should not have been speaking. My arrogance flared to hide unease. You should not be awake, I told him. He tilted his head, that faint smile returning. You should be more careful with assumptions. Every member of my crew froze. The chamber suddenly felt smaller, walls pressing inward with his words. He spoke not as a captive, but as if he had been expecting this conversation, as though we had entered his plan rather than dragged him into ours. Who are you? I demanded. He chuckled softly. Just a guy who likes camping. And listening. His eyes flicked toward the consoles, the instruments, the guards. I've been listening since you plucked me out of the woods. Not much of a lullaby, by the way. Too many harmonics. I suppressed the urge to glance at the systems. Impossible, I told myself. He was improvising, bluffing with confidence. Still, his calm unsettled me. Most subjects woke in terror. This one woke in control. The scientist whispered that our sedation field must have malfunctioned. I wanted to believe him, yet belief frayed beneath the human's unbroken stare. The soldier adjusted his weapon nervously, sweat forming despite climate control. The human spoke again, casual, as if around a campfire. You know, we used to tell stories about this. Aliens show up, take someone, run their experiments. We called them abductions. Everyone laughed, said it was paranoia. But we knew. Some of us prepared. My throat tightened. Prepared? For us? Absurd. And yet, his words carried weight no delusion could match. He closed his eyes briefly, as if testing something within himself, then opened them with that same unsettling calm. I'm going to enjoy this, he whispered. The ship hummed louder, just for a moment, then fell silent again. My crew looked to me for guidance, but for once I had none. The primitive specimen had introduced himself not through name or gesture, but through presence, and already I felt the first cracks in our certainty. The mission was no longer routine. The subject was no longer trivial. And though I would never admit it aloud, a tremor of doubt moved through me like a hairline fracture in steel. I realized, uncomfortably, that the study had already shifted. We were no longer the observers. We were the observed. When the subject stirred sooner than anticipated, I was annoyed more than alarmed. Our paralysis fields are precise instruments, calibrated over centuries, flawless against species far more advanced than this mammalian oddity. Yet his eyelids fluttered again, his breathing shifted, and then he sat up with a slow deliberation that was entirely at odds with what I had ordered. My team froze. I felt their panic spreading like static through the chamber. I raised my hand to silence them. Control must be performed, not requested. The subject should have been disoriented, weak, gasping for context. Instead, he stretched his neck as if waking from an afternoon nap and smiled. Yes, smiled. The expression unsettled me in ways I refused to admit. He did not shriek or demand explanation. He merely looked at us with the disinterest of a predator assessing harmless creatures. I reminded myself that this was a fragile primate addicted to glowing screens and salted snacks. His grin meant nothing. Yet when he spoke, the confidence in his tone chipped at my certainty. So, he said casually, which one of you is in charge? His voice carried no tremor, no confusion. He scanned our formation with startling accuracy, eyes landing on me without hesitation. Ah, he added you. I laughed, a short, sharp sound meant to reassure my team. Primitive deduction, I declared. Even their guessing games amused me. But then he began describing them, one by one. You're the scientist, he said, pointing to my colleague with the analysis tablet. Your hands twitch when you're excited. You're the soldier, he added to our guard. Left-handed, but you trained yourself to shoot right for uniformity. The soldier flinched. And you, he said, tilting his head toward me. You're the one who thinks he's smarter than everyone else, but you talk too much when you're nervous. The laughter caught in my throat. I refused to let it show, but the accuracy of his observations stung. My team shifted uncomfortably. Coincidence, I muttered too quickly. He leaned back, still smiling, as if he were in control of the experiment, not us. You brought me up here in your neat little tractor beam, he continued. Cute trick, but you might want to work on the vibrations in your left engine coil. It's running uneven. The room chilled. You should not have known that. Our propulsion system hummed at frequencies imperceptible to human senses. Impossible, I snapped. He shrugged. Felt it on the way up. Your ship's heartbeat is off. If I were you, I'd check the conduits before you push them too far. His tone was maddeningly casual, as though giving advice on car maintenance rather than revealing secrets of interstellar travel. I tried to reassert control. You are under analysis, specimen. Your observations are irrelevant. Yet he only smirked. Analysis, huh? That what you call it? Funny. I was awake most of the trip. You guys talk a lot when you think no one's listening. My chest tightened. Awake? Impossible. The paralysis should have rendered him unconscious, blind, deaf, helpless. And yet here he was, recounting details with unnerving calm. Primitive trickery, I declared, my voice echoing harsher than intended. You bluff. He tilted his head, studying me like one studies a puzzle. You think I'm bluffing? That's good. That means you're not sure. He chuckled softly. I like keeping things interesting. He asked for water, not in desperation, but as though testing how we would react. We gave none. He shrugged and began speaking again, not with pleas, but with questions. So, this is your command deck? Or just the testing floor? Who's back there running your scans? How many cameras do you have on me? 4? No, 6. 2 are hidden in that ridge. He gestured without looking. My aides exchanged glances. He was correct. My internal balance shifted uneasily. Confidence demanded denial, but evidence whispered otherwise. You cannot possibly perceive them, I insisted. Our surveillance is invisible. He smiled again, a slow curling of lips that made my scales tighten. Invisible to you, he said. Not to me. I attempted to distract him with questions to reassert dominance. State your identity. His response was immediate. Name's not important. But I know who you are. Soldiers, scientists, commanders, all convinced you're invincible. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. You ever heard of poker? None of us answered. He chuckled. Didn't think so. It's a human game. Bluffing, reading, waiting. You'd be terrible at it. The scientist whispered to me that perhaps we should increase sedation. I considered it, then rejected the idea. To retreat would admit weakness. You are still under our control, I said firmly. Your confidence is misplaced. He looked directly into my eyes. Control, he repeated softly, as though tasting the word. Funny, you don't look like you're in control. His calmness was more dangerous than any outburst could have been. Anger I could dismiss, panic I could exploit. But serenity was a weapon of a different kind. It implied knowledge we did not have. And then he began referencing things that gnawed at me. You know, he said conversationally, this reminds me of that old movie, what was it, oh yeah, Independence Day. Aliens showing up, thinking they own the place. Never ends well for them. My team looked at me, baffled. I did not know this Independence Day, yet his tone suggested inevitability, a script we were doomed to follow. He spoke again. And then there's Chuck Norris. He winked. You wouldn't want to meet him. My soldiers murmured. I snapped at them to silence. But the seed was planted. Who was this Norris? Why did a mere wink make my chest constrict? I hated that the reference meant nothing to me. The unknown was intolerable. We resumed scans. His brain patterns lit the monitors with wild complexity, spirals of activity unlike any we had charted. Abnormal, the scientist muttered. Too dense, too erratic. I dismissed it at first, but the data grew worse. His neural responses did not simply react. They anticipated, as though he was mapping the system that was mapping him. Impossible, I whispered. But there it was. He should have been a subject. Instead, he was a participant. He noticed our distress and leaned casually against the restraints, though I now suspected they bound him less than we believed. Relax, he said. I've done worse. Back home, I worked in security testing, counterintelligence. You know, seeing how easy it is to break into systems. Turns out, yours is very easy. A chill spread through the chamber. He spoke with such confidence, such unbearable calm, that my scales prickled. "You're bluffing," I said again, more desperately. He tilted his head, his eyes unblinking. "Bluffing's part of the game, but you'll know soon enough." Then he whispered, almost gently, as though confiding a secret meant only for me. "I've already sent a message." The words froze us all. My aides looked at me, eyes wide, waiting for denial. I opened my mouth, but the chamber lights flickered, and in that flicker was the first fracture of certainty I could not mend. Silence pressed against us after his declaration. I searched his face for signs of jest, of human theatrics, yet found only that intolerable calm. "A message," I repeated, attempting disdain. "To whom exactly? Your primitive networks? You cannot possibly breach our systems." My words were precise, but they trembled with a vibration I despised. He leaned back as far as the restraints allowed and smiled again. "You'd be surprised what slips through when someone's paying attention." I despised that grin. It wasn't the defiance of prey, nor the smugness of victory. It was worse. It was patience, as if he had already calculated the end of this exchange and was simply watching me struggle to catch up. I snapped at my scientists to double the scans, run the deepest probes, extract every fragment of thought. He obeyed quickly, relieved for action, but the monitors only deepened our discomfort. The human's neural activity was a storm, unpredictable, spiraling, impossible to chart. It was not chaos born of weakness. It was chaos with direction, a pattern too complex for our algorithms to define. My scientist muttered that the subject anticipated the probes, redirecting thought before we could lock onto it. "Ridiculous," I barked. "He cannot know he is being measured." Yet the human tilted his head and said, "You're trying to map me. Good luck with that. Even I get lost in there." My soldier cursed under his breath. I silenced him, but the damage was done. The subject heard, and his smile widened. "You're nervous," he said lightly. "That's good. Keeps you sharp, or gets you killed. Depends how you handle it." He glanced toward me again, eyes sharp as glass. "I'm betting you don't handle it well." The insult stung, but I would not show it. Instead, I demanded, "What are you?" "You are not representative of your kind." He chuckled. "See, that's where you're wrong. I'm very representative. You've just been looking in the wrong places. Reality TV, Florida Man, sure, they're real. But so am I. You thought those were outliers. They aren't. Humans are inconsistent. Some of us fall asleep watching soap operas. Some of us break into ships like yours. Same species. Same toolbox." He leaned forward, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "We thought Florida Man was an isolated case. He is not." My aide shivered. I could not stop them. The phrase carried weight we did not understand, yet it chilled us. I tried to retake ground with mockery. "You hide behind riddles. You distract with humor. A survival mechanism of weak creatures." He grinned. "Humor's a weapon, same as anything else. You laugh at me, you underestimate me. That's how I win." The scans pulsed again, showing patterns beyond our reach. My scientist murmured about anomalies, substructures of thought we had never documented. "It's as though he's rewriting himself," he said. "Or worse, rewriting us." The subject noticed our anxiety and chose that moment to speak again. "You ever seen The Matrix?" he asked. None of us replied. "Figures. Movie about reality being fake. Machines in control. People asleep. Some wake up. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Whose dream are you in?" He smirked. "I think you're in mine." I hissed for silence, but the words embedded themselves like shards. Machines in control. Dreams inside dreams. These were supposed to be primitive fantasies, yet his delivery carried the weight of revelation. My certainty fractured further. The scientist whispered we should sedate him. The soldier gripped his weapon tighter. Both looked to me for reassurance. I had none to give. "You claim to be dangerous," I said finally, clinging to formality. "Prove it." He tilted his head, considering. Then he said softly, "I don't need to prove anything. You've already proved it for me. Look at yourselves, jumping at shadows, whispering in corners, doubting every redoubt. I'm not doing this to you. You're doing it to yourselves. I'm just helping." His restraint clamps hissed faintly, pressure shifting as though tested from within. My guard raised his weapon instinctively. The human noticed and chuckled. Relax. If I wanted out, I'd already be out. That's not the game. The game is watching you unravel. I could not endure his confidence. Enough riddles. I thundered. State your true purpose. His eyes locked on mine, and for the first time his grin faded, replaced by something colder, sharper. Purpose? My purpose is to test. I was trained to break systems, to find weaknesses. That's what I do. That's what I've already done. The words sank like anchors. My soldier demanded, "What have you done?" The human leaned back, face once more calm, almost bored. "I already told you. Send a message. Use your own scan beam to piggyback a signal. Cute trick, right? You opened the door. I just walked through it." My blood chilled. The scan beam, our most sacred tool of analysis. Reversed, corrupted, used against us? No. Impossible. And yet the lights above flickered again, faint but undeniable. My scientist cursed softly. Power fluctuation. My soldier glanced nervously around the chamber. I gritted my teeth. Coincidence. Nothing more. But the human's timing was impeccable. He smiled at the flicker as though he had commanded it. "Here's the thing," he continued, voice quiet now, forcing us to lean closer. "You think Earth is weak. That's the con. We'll let you think that. Primitive weapons, chaotic politics, memes about cats. It's camouflage. You don't show predators your claws until they're close enough to bleed." The chamber air thickened. I swallowed words I could not form. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "You want to know about our weapons? You're looking at one. Not the gun, not the bombs. Me, my mind, my training, my patience. That's the real weapon." My guard swore and stepped back. The scientist trembled. I forced my voice to steadiness. "You exaggerate your importance." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just the first you noticed. Maybe there are hundreds of me, thousands, and you'll never know until it's too late." The lights flickered again, longer this time. Alarms chirped briefly, then silenced themselves. My systems officer reported no malfunctions, but his voice was brittle with fear. The human chuckled softly, almost kindly. "Don't worry. It's just starting. You'll get used to it." I stared at him, my arrogance crumbling in silence. He watched me steadily, no malice, no gloating, only that unbearable calm. "You think you're in control," he said quietly. "But tell me, if I were in control, would anything look different?" And though I opened my mouth to deny it, no words came. The chamber groaned with a sound I had never heard from our vessel. It was not the familiar hum of engines or the crisp tone of diagnostics. It was deeper, more primal, as if the ship itself had caught a breath it could not release. My officers glanced upward, their eyes wide, their confidence fractured beyond repair. The human remained perfectly still, his smile thinner now, less amused, more inevitable. "That's the sound of systems learning they're not in charge anymore," he said softly. I snapped for a report. The scientist stammered about cascading anomalies in the neural relay grid. The soldier cursed and demanded permission to fire, to silence the specimen before the infection spread. I hesitated, and in that hesitation, the ship dimmed. Lights flickered, alarms whispered awake, then died mid-scream. I had commanded fleets across sectors, watched worlds bend to our discipline, yet I had never felt powerless until that moment. All of it stemmed from a single restrained mammal who seemed to control our panic by doing almost nothing. "You think in straight lines," he murmured. "You build systems like ladders. Step after step. Predictable. Easy to climb. Humans, we're crooked. We zigzag. That's harder to map." His tone was not boastful. It was explanatory, almost patient, as if tutoring a student too stubborn to learn. I wanted to silence him, to prove our superiority, but my voice refused to rise above the quiet dread filling my chest. The soldier raised his weapon. The human didn't flinch. He looked at the barrel, then at the guard, and said, "If you shoot, you'll be confirming I was right all along. That you're scared." The guard froze, weapon trembling. My fury ignited, not at the human, but at my own soldier's weakness. I barked for discipline, but the command rang hollow, bouncing back at me from walls that no longer obeyed. Panels blinked alive on their own, lines of alien script warping into patterns I could not decipher. My scientist gasped. It's rewriting itself. He's inside the network. I snarled, impossible. But the human only tilted his head, eyes glinting in the dim light. Not me, he said. Your AI. It just needed a push. You gave me the keys when you scanned my brain. I gave it something new to chew on. It liked me better. The air grew heavy with the sound of doors sealing, bulkheads locking, corridors shutting like a throat around a swallowed stone. My officers tried commands, overrides, anything, but the ship no longer answered them. It answered him. He sat calmly, breathing slow, as if the metal walls pulsed with his rhythm. I demanded to know what his true plan was. He turned his gaze to me, expression unreadable now, stripped of humor. Plan? Simple. Show you the truth. Earth isn't weak. We'll let you think it's weak. That's the trap. We play dumb, argue on TV, microwave burritos, let cats run our houses, camouflage. Underneath, some of us train. We watch. We wait. He leaned forward. And when someone like you shows up, we're ready. My throat tightened. You cannot win against the galactic armies. He nodded slowly. Maybe not in open battle. But wars aren't just fought with guns. They're fought with information, deception, patience. You underestimated all three. The scientist tried to protest, but the ship silenced him with a sudden lock of restraints around his limbs, as if punishing doubt. My guards stumbled backward, weapon clattering to the floor as the gravity fluctuated briefly. The human watched us unravel with unnerving serenity. You're not fighting me, he said. You're fighting yourselves. I just nudged the first domino. Screens lit with maps I recognized too late. Orbital trajectories, satellite networks, deep space signals bouncing invisibly across our own sensors. The human gestured casually. Those little specks you thought were junk? Not junk. Cloaked monitors. Been there for years. You thought you were watching us. We've been watching you. My mind reeled. Entire campaigns, entire strategies, founded on the belief that Earth was blind and deaf to the stars. Now, with every blinking line of code, that illusion shattered. Lies, I croaked. Deception. He gave a small shrug. Call it what you want. You're in our net now. The ship groaned again. Systems folded into lockdown, sealing my crew in isolated chambers. Doors hissed shut. Alarms wailed briefly, then silenced as if embarrassed. Soon only I remained with him in the analysis chamber. My officers' cries echoed faintly through comms, then faded into static. I was alone, except for the man who no longer looked like a prisoner. He regarded me with a calm that stripped me bare. You wanted to measure our weapons, he said. Here it is. Not lasers, not fleets. One human, patient enough to wait, smart enough to listen, calm enough to smile while you panic. That's the weapon. I wanted to argue. I wanted to remind him of our history, of galaxies bent beneath our discipline. But the words dried into ash before reaching my tongue. He leaned closer, whisper soft. Target acquired. The phrase sank deeper than any blade. Not shouted, not screamed, whispered. Intimate. Certain. A verdict, not a threat. The lights dimmed further, then steadied, as though the ship itself had accepted new command. I stared at him, searching for weakness, for doubt, for any sign this was bluff. Instead, I found only patience, that same unbearable patience I had mocked at the beginning. He had never been still from paralysis. He had been waiting. For the first time in my long service, I felt something alien to me. Fear, not of weapons, not of fleets, not of death. Fear of misjudgment. Fear of having laughed at what should never have been mocked. My comm crackled once before dying. Across the fading channel, I heard my officers shouting, panic trapped. Then silence. He looked at me steadily. They'll be fine. Eventually. I'm not here to kill anyone. Just to remind you, we're not prey. We never were. The words hollowed me. I had come here certain of superiority, armored in arrogance. Now I was stripped of certainty, left with only the echo of his whisper. What? I asked, barely able to form the syllable. Why let us live? He leaned back, eyes closing briefly as if weary. Because fear spreads faster than fire. One survivor tells the story, and the rest of you think twice before coming back. That's all it takes. His eyes open again, piercing. And you, my friend, are going to tell them. I try to answer, but the ship shifted once more. A corridor opened like a mouth exhaling, a path guiding me away from him. The restraints on my limbs vanished. I staggered to my feet, trembling. He sat perfectly still, unchained, yet unmoving. Go, he said. Deliver the message. I obeyed, though every step felt like betrayal of my pride. The ship carried me, obedient now not to me, but to him. When I reached the docking bay, the hatch parted, revealing the endless stars. Behind me, his voice floated through the calm, low, certain final. Remember, the quiet ones are the loudest weapons. And then I was falling back toward the fleet, alone, stripped of certainty. They would demand a report, demand answers. I would give them words, but not conviction. For how could I explain the truth? That Earth had never been primitive. That weakness was camouflage. That patience was a blade. I had mocked their addictions, their humor, their absurdities. Now, those absurdities seemed like masks, clever disguises for something deeper. Something I could not control. Something I feared. We had scoffed at their weapons. We should have feared their whispers.